Hello, this is Jerry Jenkins. I'm in Windows 10 here, and we're going to show you how to install the latest version of Python in a development environment called PyCharm, which is one of the most popular what's called IDEs, or development environment, integrated development environment that you can use to write programs in Python. And then we're going to show you actually how to set it up and write your first program. So we'll start, if you've already installed Python, you want to remove it. So tell if you've installed it. You go to the Windows search down here and type cmd. We're going to bring up the command prompt, and we're going to just type in Python and hit enter and see what it does. So if it brings this up, it's going into the Microsoft Store, and it's going to ask you to install it here. Now if you've done this, you want to remove it because the version from the store, first of all, it's not the latest version, and also the version from the store is not fully functional. They may have fixed it since I last tried it, but I don't really trust it. It won't be the latest version either, because the latest version is by going to the Python website and downloading it. So I'm going to skip this. So if you got that, that means it's not correctly installed. If it gave you that it was installed, you also might want to remove it and start fresh. So to start fresh, you would go to the app add and remove programs, find everything that's called Python, and uninstall them. So that's how you would set up. So we have a clean slate for what we're about to do. Then you go to your browser, and you're going to type in python.org, python.org, hit enter. Make this a little bigger. And you'll see this is the main site for the Python organization. So under downloads, if you just move your mouse, you don't have to click, and then just move it down and over, but don't click until you get to this button, and then click. And it's going to download the newest version. So you have to go ahead and say run. Now you notice it brought up a window back here. This is a new thing that's happening in Windows, which has been there for a while. It actually normally would hide the window from you. I just happened to have it small enough that it showed a corner of it. So if it looks like it's not downloading anymore, you can close the browser and you'll see this window. So this is actually the install window. So what we're going to do next is go down to where it says add Python to the path. You have to do this for it to work from the command line and for some environments that you run to find Python. So make sure you check this box and then click install now and say yes, and then wait for it to be done. Okay, and it's all done. There's just one more thing we're going to do, but before I do that, you'll notice it was saying it was installing a 32-bit version. Don't worry that your operating system is 64-bit. That just refers to the architecture of the program, and you can get 64-bit versions. But the only reason you'd want to run a 64-bit version of Python is because of very technical reasons that won't apply if you're learning Python. And even as an expert, I've never had to run 64-bit version. But one thing we want to do is disable this path limit. So you just click here and say yes, and then go ahead and close this. And then we're going to show in here, if you click on the start button, it should list everything we've installed. So it's listing the Python 3.8, and it also installs some manuals on Python, and it installed a program called idle, which allows you to run Python, and you've probably read this if you look at tutorials on using Python on the web. But we're not going to use that. We're going to jump to a more advanced system by installing PyCharm now. So to install PyCharm, go to your browser and type in jetbrains.com/pycharm and hit enter. So I'll put this link in my video description as well. So you'll see this takes us to a page. I've never been here on this system, so I have to say yes to the cookie warning. It's a new thing you've been seeing on websites lately. And then click on download. And then you get two choices here. You get a professional version and a community version. Now the professional version is a professional version that does all kinds of things for developing Python. For learning, you don't need the professional version, but I will say if you're a student at a certified school, you can get a free professional version. You can go to the buy and look at educational pricing, and it'll show you how to qualify, but basically you need a school that has an edu email address for yourself, or if you're a teacher that has a identity card, or you have an official student, what's called an international student card. And so you read about all this in buy. And when you do that, you get you can get all of their tools that JetBrains makes, which is almost every language known to programmers that they use these days. So just to let you know that. But we're going to download the community edition, so just click download here. And it's downloading. Hit run. Okay, so it's downloaded, and I think it's starting. So again, I think it put it behind this window. Well, it didn't. Oh, so you see this blinking thing here? That means there's a security warning. So you have to click this and say yes. And then then it brings up. If it may bring this up behind the browser window. So I'm going to close the browser window, and now we're in the dialog to install PyCharm. So we're going to go ahead and hit next, and we're going to hit next. Now we're going to set some things here. We want the 64-bit launcher that allows a shortcut on your desktop to start it. You want this association here. So that means if you have a Python file in the Windows Explorer, and you double click on it, it'll open up PyCharm. And then you want to add this, which allows it to set up the path variable to launch things. So I recommend setting those three options. Hit next, hit install. I'll speed this up for you. Okay, so we have to reboot our system. So I'm going to hit reboot now and hit finish, and I'll come back when we've rebooted. Okay, we're back, and you can see we have our shortcut to PyCharm here. And under the Windows Start button, we also have PyCharm. So we can start it a couple ways. You can also just do search for PyCharm and open it up. That's my favorite way, by the way. So first we just have to accept some agreements here. And okay, and now we're doing the initial setup. You only see this one time. It wants to know, do you want a black style of editor or the white style of editor? So we'll take the light colored style. It has some plugins you can install. If you're just beginning, I would just skip these. So this is the main screen you get when you don't have a project you're working on. So you can make a new project, which is just a fancy term for a folder that you put all your work in for a particular programming project. You can open an existing project, and if you're a programmer that's been around, you can use version control, but as a new person, you're probably not going to use that. So we're just going to create a new project. And when you create a new project, it picks where it's going to put it. You can change where this is, but it's going to have a file. It's automatically going to create a folder name for you, just called Python project. So we want to change that to what we want. So I'm just going to make a program that says hello. So I'm going to replace that with hello. So that'll be my project name. The next thing it wants you to do is specify what Python to use. And it's going to insist that you use a virtual environment. This is a more advanced thing for Python programmers that allows you to have a virtual settings for the environment and libraries you use for your project. And it adds extra space to the file, and it's a little hard to explain to beginners. So we're not going to use that. We're going to go down to where it says existing interpreter. That means the Python that we just installed, the system interpreter. So we're going to click here, and then we're going to, you'll see there's nothing to choose from, so we have to click here and click on this, and so we want to click on the existing interpreter, and then click on these three little dots, and then we want to skip down. We're in virtual environment. We want to skip down to where it says system interpreter, and you notice it found what we just installed. So if you don't see this listed here, you have to go back and install Python, and then restart JetBrains, the PyCharm. So once this is selected, just hit OK. That sets our current project up to use that. And then it'll automatically create a program for you, but we're going to skip that. You can always try this out, but we're going to do it from scratch because that's how you would do it for real. And then hit create. So we're going to create a new folder for our project. It's going to be using the system interpreter, which we set up, and it's not going to automatically create a main program. So hit create. And basically it started the project. Now when it first starts a project, or you open up a project, you see this tip of the day. These are little things to teach you how to use more of PyCharm. So, and you can not see these tips. You can always turn them back on under Help. You can scroll through them and read them all if you want to take the time. I'm just going to close it. The other thing you'll see when you start up is this warning. So Windows Defender, if you're not aware of it, is the thing that protects you from malicious programs. So it's going to examine everything you do as a developer when you write code and tell you whether it's potentially a virus or not. So basically we want to exclude the directories where you're developing stuff. So we're going to hit Exclude Directory and hit Configure Automatically and say yes. And that also speeds things up, because looking at all your code slows things down a bit. And then here's our project name, and this is what's called external library. So inside of Python, where we installed things, this is pointing to everything that's part of Python. So you usually don't need to refer to this. I'm just going to hit the little arrow here to not show that. And I'm going to go up to our project, and I'm going to open it. And you see there's nothing in it yet. So I'm going to right-click my mouse button on the project and say New, and then Python file. You can also make a regular file. So I'm going to do a Python file. And so we're going to make a name for what we're going to do. So we're going to just call it my first program. And hit Enter. Now you put all your programs as for your project here. So you may have multiple Python files, but one of them is going to be your main program. So let's have it do something. We're just going to say print parentheses quote hello. So that's your first computer program here. And then we want to run it. So it has a run button, but it's not set up to run. It won't work. So the first time you run, and this also establishes which file is your main program, you right-click inside the editor, white space, and you say run my first program. And that does a very important thing. It sets up this as the main thing that's going to run. So from now on, you can just hit this run button, or you can see there's a shortcut. You can just shift F10 on your keyboard, and that'll run it. So it ran down here and said hello, and that's it. So you're using PyCharm. Oh, but it's one very important thing, because every time you make a project, it's going to ask you to do a virtual environment. So we're going to tell it to change that option. So this is, you go up to File, and you say Settings right here. And so there's a lot of things you can do in settings. This is where you can control all of PyCharm and a lot of things about it. The first thing I'm going to point out is that theme that was light or dark. You can change it to dark or light here. And I'll apply that. You can see that's the dark theme, and this is the light theme. So that's where you can change things. If your font's too small, you can, for the UI, you can change the UI font. If you want to see everywhere that you control fonts, if you type font in a little search box, it looks through all the settings and tells you all the places it refers to font. So another font you might want to change is your editor font here, and your console font. Those are some important fonts if you just like things bigger. We're going to take that away. What we want to go to is, we're going to go down to where it says build execution. And well, actually, let's start this again. It's easier if we start from scratch. So I'm going to go File, Settings. There. This gives you a more condensed version of all that. We want to do build execution. So you open that up, and then you choose on Build Tools. So we're going to go to File, Settings, and what you want here is Project. So we're going to go to File, and then there's a special thing called New Project Settings. This is things you want to set as the default whenever you want to create a new project. So we're going to Settings for New Projects, and we're going to go to the Python interpreter. And here it says no interpreter, so we're going to click the Show All, and we're going to choose the 3.8 that we set up. So that's going to automatically always go to the 3.8. Hit OK. Hit OK. And we'll see if it works. So I'm going to go ahead and close this project. So I'm going to go File, Close Project. And I'm going to say a new project. And you'll see it automatically set up the interpreter. It's set up that it's a system interpreter. So it automatically defaulted to do that all the time. So I'll hit Cancel. So that's using PyCharm to create a program. So you should be good to go. So start looking on my channel for my other Python tutorials. So I have a whole set of tutorials that are called Python database. So check out the rest of my channel. I have a lot of Python material from the beginner to the advanced.